Welcome to Let's Talk with Dr. Shanessa Fenner. I'm your host of Let's Talk with Dr. Shanessa Fenner. Today I have a very, very prominent, well-known, notable last of the big six of the civil rights movement, Mr. Congressman John Lewis. Welcome, Congressman.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted and very pleased to be with you.
Okay, and I'm very pleased that you are here with me. Okay, I want you to first start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, because you have a wonderful history of the civil rights and all of the things that you've been through. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I grew up in rural Alabama, about 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little town called Troy. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer. But back in 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4.
Oh, great.
My father had saved $300, and with the $300, he bought 110 acres of land. My family still own that land today. On this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, hogs, cows, and chickens. We had garden, we had sweet potatoes, and greens, and butter beans. So we had food, we had something good to eat, and healthy food for the most part, almost every day, especially during the spring and the summer. But we were still poor. I would visit the little town of Troy. I remember making a field trip to Tuskegee, where Tuskegee Institute, now Tuskegee University, is located. I remember going off to Alabama State to visit. One of my uncles was in school there. It was only 50 miles from our home. But when we would visit the little town of Troy, 10 miles away, or visit Montgomery, I saw the signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. And I didn't like it.
Mm-hmm. Me either.
And I really didn't. And I would ask my mother and my father, my grandparents and great-grandparents, and they would say, boy, that's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble.
Okay. So when did you first decide, or what is the incident that led you to become a civil rights activist?
Well, in 1955, 15 years old, in the 10th grade, I heard about Emmett Till. Emmett Till, this young man from Chicago, was visiting his family or relatives in Mississippi. And I heard that he had been killed. We were out working in the field. I think it was August 28, 1955. And I kept thinking, this could be one of my cousins, because they were living in Buffalo, New York, and they would come home each summer to visit us. And I thought about it over and over again. But then a few months later, I heard about Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and the action of Rosa Parks and the leadership and words of Martin Luther King Jr. inspired me. I think Dr. King and Rosa Parks gave me a way out, provided an opportunity for me to get involved. I was so inspired by Rosa Parks, by Martin Luther King Jr., that in 1956, with some of my brothers and sisters, we went down to the public library in the little town of Troy, Alabama, trying to get library cards, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the library is for whites only, not for coloreds. So I never went back to this library until July 5th, 1998, for a book signing of my book, Walking with the Wind. And many whites and African Americans showed up. We had a reception, wonderful program, I signed books, and even the owners and some of the heirs of the land, where my great-grandfather and my grandfather and my mother and her 8 brothers and her 1 sister were born on, showed up for the book signing. And it changed my life that I had to do something to continue to push to bring about change.
Okay. I want to ask you a question about the word colored. The word colored has always been a problem to me, okay? When you were a little boy back then and you saw the signs with colored on it, do you have a problem with the word colored?
Well, as a little boy, I kept thinking, colored. I saw it. So colored waiting, colored men, colored women, colored boys, colored girls. And I said, we to myself as an innocent little child, I just keep saying, well, I guess we all are some color, but some of us can be a different shade of a certain color. But I had a problem because it tended to separate people within the African American community, but in the larger community. I did have a, yeah. But we were called colored, then we were called Negro, and black, and now African American.
Okay, I was just wondering because I've always felt like I'm not a crayon, and I prefer to go by the term black. So I just wanted to know how you felt about the term colored.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I felt much more at home than being called black.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Than being called colored.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Bloody Sunday.
Well, on March 7, 1965, a group of us, young people and people not so young, attempted to march from Selma to Montgomery to dramatize to the nation that people of color, black people, wanted to participate in the democratic process. In Selma, Alabama, in 1965, only 2.1% of black citizens could register to vote. And the only time you could attempt to register to vote was on the first and third Mondays of each month. And the only place with a county courthouse, and that could mean 50 miles round trip or 60 miles round trip, and you would go and stand in line and sometimes all day trying to get a copy of the so-called literacy test. And people would ask things like, cite certain section of the Constitution of the state of Alabama, a certain section of the United States Constitution. But on occasion, people would be asked to count the number of bubbles in a bar of soap, the number of jelly beans in a jar. And there was a sheriff there. He was a very big man who wore a helmet on his head. He wore a gun on one side, a nightstick on the other side, and he carried an electric cat prodder in his hand, and he didn't use it on cows. He controlled the courthouse like it was his private home. And sometimes when young black, middle-aged black, or older blacks would go there to attempt to register to vote, he would try to get their names, take their names down, or take the license plate number from the automobile. It was a form of harassment, a form of intimidation, and we were organized, and we kept organizing. And I remember one day when it was my time to lead a group of people down to the courthouse, just to get up a set of double steps to a set of double doors to get inside and get a copy of the test. The sheriff walked up to me and said, "John Lewis, you're an outside agitator. You're the lowest form of humanity." And I said, "Sheriff, I may be an outside agitator, but I'm not the lowest form of humanity. And we're going to stay here until these people are allowed to register to vote." He said, "You're under arrest." And many of us were arrested that day. A few days later, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and others came to Selma, and Dr. King was arrested. Selma, Alabama, was 35 or 40 miles from the little town of Marion, Alabama, where Mrs. Martin Luther King Jr. was born. So one evening in Marion, Alabama, there was a march to the courthouse for the right to vote in Marion, and a confrontation occurred. And a young man tried to protect his mother. He was shot in the stomach, and died a few days later at a local hospital in Selma. And because of what happened to him, we made a decision to attempt to march from Selma to Montgomery. So on Sunday, March 7th, 600 of us at the church lined up in an orderly, peaceful, nonviolent fashion to walk. We were not interfering with traffic. We were walking on the sidewalk on the bridge. We came to the highest point on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. Down below, we stood a sea of blue, Alabama state troopers. And behind the state troopers was the sheriff posse, men on horseback. We get to the edge of the bridge. He spoke up and said, "This is an unlawful march. Will not be allowed to continue." That's what the major said. "I give you 3 minutes to disperse and return to your homes or to your church." And a young man walking beside me by the name of Jose Williams, who was on Dr. King's staff, SCLC, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, said, "Major, give us a moment to kneel and pray." And the major said, "Troopers, advance." You saw these guys putting on their gas masks. They came toward us, beating us with nightsticks, trampling us with horses, and releasing the tear gas. I was hit in the head by a state trooper with a nightstick. I became the first victim of violence on that Sunday afternoon. 17 of us were hurt and hospitalized. Almost 50 years later, I don't recall how I made it back across that bridge through the streets of Selma back to that little church, but I do recall being back at the church. The church was full to capacity. More than 1,500 people outside trying to get in, and someone asked me to say something to the audience. And I stood up and said, "I don't understand it. How President Johnson can send troops to Vietnam and cannot send troops to Selma to protect people whom the desire is to register to vote." The next thing I knew, I'd been admitted to this hospital where a group of nuns took care of us. But that changed America forever. Because of what happened in Selma, there was a sense of righteous indignation. People didn't like it. People marched all around the White House, the Department of Justice. There was demonstration by the following Tuesday in more than 80 cities in America.
Okay. Now, is this the person that has come back to you recently and apologized to you?
The person that came back and apologized to me was a member of the Klan in Rock Hill, South Carolina during the Freedom Ride.
Okay.
He came to my office less than a month after President Barack Obama had been inaugurated. His son came with him. His son was in his 40s. The gentleman was in his 70s. And he said, "Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you. And I beat you and your seatmate." My seatmate was a white gentleman. And he said, "I want to apologize. Will you forgive me?" And I said, "I accept your apology." He started crying. His son started crying. I said, "I forgive you." And I started crying. And the three of us stood there crying. And I saw this gentleman 3 other times after that particular day. His wife said to me when she made a call that he just wanted to get right before he went home to see his God.
Congressman, why do you think that some whites have always had a problem with us? I mean, why have we been hated for so long? I mean, what's the root of all of it? Why?
I think there's something in our history in this country since the days of slavery, since we were brought here against our will, that said, in effect, that we are less, that we're not good enough. And there's been this bias, this hatred, and we're not there yet. Well, we're not free from it. The scars and stains of racism are deeply embedded in America's psyche. And we got to continue to work to remove it. And we got to go through a period of reconciliation and forgiveness. There are people, there are forces that are afraid to say, we were wrong, that we need to apologize. People saying a great country, good people, that we cannot, they think it's low, it's beneath them to say we did wrong, we was wrong. But slavery and the legacy of segregation and racial discrimination is one of the great sins of our country. But I truly believe we would get it right. We would get it right, and one day, maybe, just maybe, America would emerge as a model for the rest of the world.
Okay. What is your view on Black progress? Of course, in society today, we're seen often as a burden to society, not a societal partner that is going to share the load. So what is your view on Black progress?
Well, as a people and as a nation, we made a lot of progress. And when people said to me, nothing has changed, I feel like saying, come and walk in my shoes. I will show you change. The signs that I saw growing up in Alabama, or the signs that I saw as a student in school in Nashville, they are gone. They will not return. The only places our children and their children will see those signs will be in a book, in a museum, or on a video. But we still have a great distance to go. There's still too many people are left out and left behind. They're Black, they're white, they're Latinos, they're Asian American, they're Native American. So we cannot say that we're there. And you know, some people wanted to suggest after the election of President Barack Obama that we oppose racial society. It's not there. This president, this man, has been called everything but a child of God. When you have a governor in a state like Arizona, put a finger in the face of the president, or you have a member of the Congress during a joint session of the Congress while the president is speaking, holler out, you lie. I have never seen another president treated the way this man has been treated. But I tell you, his election with his beautiful family, his wife, his two lovely daughters, is helping to educate and inform. And so maybe it's okay, it's all right. And one day, soon, there will be a woman as president of the United States. One day, there will be a Latino as president, an Asian American, maybe one day a Native American. But there are people who live in fear. They're afraid of the future. People shouldn't be afraid. We should embrace the diversity we have in America. America is like a quilt of many different patterns and colors. So I am very, very hopeful and optimistic about the future. We will get it.
Okay. What can we teach our future youth about fighting for their rights and beliefs? What are some of the things that we can tell them to do?
I think it's important for our young people, our children, to know about the struggle, that it just didn't happen, that people paid a price, that some people were beaten, lynched, shot, killed, 4 little girls killed on a Sunday morning in September 1963 when a church bomb went off in Birmingham. A young leader like Medgar Evers being assassinated in his driveway in Jackson, Mississippi. He was a veteran. That so many people stood in unmovable lines to get us to where we are today. And our youth must understand that they have a role to play, that they have a mission and a mandate, yes, to get the best possible education, and to use that education as a tool, not just for themselves, but for the larger society. Use it for good, to make our country and make our world a better place for all humankind.
I am first and foremost a principal of an elementary school, and I'm always very concerned about the plight of our young black males. What can we do to save our black males, Congressman?
We have to set our black males, stay in school, stay away from violence, stay away from drugs, and be the best you can be. In this day and age, when we have someone in the White House like President Barack Obama, you can say, if Barack Obama can do it, you too can do it. Dream, and never give up on your dreams. When I was in school, growing up very, very poor in rural Alabama, as I said, this teacher told me to read. She would say, read, my child, read. And I tried to read everything that I could. People must believe that they too can succeed. Our black males, they need a lot of help. There's too much violence. And too many of them are dying too young. We have to give them hope. We have to tell them to hang in there. Keep the faith. Keep your eyes on the prize. Be the person that you're deemed to be.
What was your view on the Trayvon Martin case? A very tragic case. I remember talking to friends of mine, and they were telling me about the conversations that they were having with their black sons, and what to do when the police stops them.
Well, I have a son. He's not that young anymore, but I would tell him from time to time, don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
If someone says something to you, be kind, be courteous, and to dress in a certain way. He didn't like to put on a tie, a suit. And I said, sometimes the way you dress is the way that people will treat you. Be respectful of others and be respectful of yourself. And I tell him, you have to be with friends and relatives that are not going to get you in what I call bad trouble. I told my parents when they were saying no this, no that I didn't like segregation, I didn't like racial discrimination, but I was inspired to get in good trouble, necessary trouble, to do something about it. So you have to try to direct young black men to do something in a positive way that you too could make a contribution.
Okay. I know that one of your main priorities when it comes to issues is health care. So talk to me a little bit about your view on health care.
When I was growing up, we didn't see a doctor. We didn't have health insurance. We had burial insurance. We weren't prepared to live. We were just prepared to die. My mother and my father, uncles and aunts, and grandparents, they just had insurance for burial. So growing up, I don't recall seeing a doctor But on one occasion, when I was playing out in the field and without shoes on, I had a cut on my foot with glass. I was taken to a doctor. Healthcare is a right. It's not a privilege. And everybody in America should have quality health care. It should be accessible and affordable. And that's what I like and love about the Affordable Care Act that President Barack Obama got passed.
Okay. Congressman Lewis, this has been a pleasure.
But it's been wonderful being with you.
Okay. Of course, I wish you loads of continued success. Thank you for being a part of my show. Audience, thank you for being a part of Let's Talk with Dr. Shanessa Fenner.